Captain Jake Morrison stared at the swirling purple energy outside the bridge windows and knew they were in serious trouble. The wormhole had appeared out of nowhere during their routine survey mission near Jupiter's moons. One moment they were scanning asteroids for rare minerals, and the next moment space itself was tearing apart around them. "All hands, brace for impact," Jake shouted as the USS Horizon shook violently. The ship's hull groaned under the stress of forces that shouldn't exist according to human science. Dr. Lisa Barnes gripped her console as sparks flew from the damaged systems around her. As the ship's chief science officer, she had seen many strange things in space, but nothing like this. "Captain, the readings are off the charts. This isn't a natural wormhole. Someone or something created this." Commander Rick Stone, the ship's first officer, pulled himself up from the floor where he had been thrown. His military training kicked in immediately. "Damage report coming in from all decks. We've got hull breaches on levels 3 and 7. Emergency force fields are holding, but barely." Engineer Maya Rodriguez's voice crackled over the communication system from the engine room. "Captain, we've got big problems down here. The wormhole scrambled our navigation systems completely. I have no idea where we are, and our faster-than-light drive is offline." Tim Carter, the ship's communications officer and linguist, was frantically working at his station. "Sir, I'm picking up signals. Lots of them. These aren't human transmissions. The patterns are completely alien." Jake took a deep breath and looked around at his crew of 43 brave men and women. They had volunteered for deep space exploration knowing the risks, but none of them had expected to end up lost in unknown space with alien signals surrounding them. "Okay, people, let's figure out where we are," Jake said calmly. Years of command experience had taught him that staying cool under pressure was the most important thing a captain could do. "Lisa, what can you tell me about our location?" Barnes studied her instruments carefully. "We're definitely not in our solar system anymore. I'm detecting at least 12 planets in this system, and 3 of them are showing signs of advanced civilization. The energy readings suggest technology far beyond anything we've ever seen." "And those alien signals Tim picked up?" Jake asked. "They're getting stronger," Tim replied. "I think someone knows we're here." As if responding to his words, 3 massive ships suddenly appeared on their sensors. Each vessel was easily 10 times the size of the Horizon, with sleek black hulls covered in strange symbols that seemed to glow with their own light. "Captain," Rick said tensely, "those ships are taking positions around us. We're surrounded." Jake studied the alien vessels on the main screen. They were beautiful in a terrifying way, like predators that were also works of art. "Any signs of weapons?" "Every inch of those ships could be a weapon for all we know," Rick replied. "Should I raise our shields and prepare for battle?" Jake thought carefully. The human race had dreamed of meeting aliens for centuries. Now that the moment had arrived, he had to make the right choice. Fighting 3 ships that size would be suicide. Running was impossible with their damaged engines. But there was a third option. "No weapons," Jake decided. "Tim, open a communication channel." "Sir?" Rick looked surprised. "We don't know if they're hostile. We don't know if they're friendly either," Jake replied. "But firing the first shot isn't how I want humanity to introduce itself to the galaxy." Tim worked quickly at his station. "Channel open, Captain, though I have no idea if they'll understand us." Jake straightened his uniform and faced the main screen. "This is Captain Jake Morrison of the Earth vessel USS Horizon. We come in peace and mean no harm. Our ship was damaged when we accidentally entered your space through an unstable wormhole. We request permission to make repairs and return to our home system." For several long minutes, nothing happened. The alien ships maintained their positions, but didn't fire. Jake began to wonder if they had received the message at all. Then the main screen flickered and suddenly they were looking at an alien face. The creature was tall and thin, with pale blue skin and large black eyes that seemed to hold ancient wisdom. Its features were sharp and angular, almost like someone had carved them from stone. When it spoke, Tim's computer translated the words into English. "I am Commander Vex Thol of the Zelanti Dominion patrol vessel Darkblade. You have entered sovereign Dominion space without permission. This is an act of war. Prepare to be boarded and processed." Dr. Barnes whispered to Jake. Process doesn't sound good. Jake nodded but kept his expression calm as he replied to the alien commander. Commander Vexthol, I understand your concern about unauthorized entry into your space. As I mentioned, our presence here was completely accidental. We would be happy to meet with you or your superiors to discuss this situation and find a peaceful solution. The alien's large eyes blinked slowly. Something in its expression suggested confusion. You will surrender your vessel and submit to Dominion authority. There is no discussion. I'm afraid I can't do that, Jake said politely. My crew and I are representatives of the human race, and we have a duty to our people. However, we're very interested in establishing friendly relations with the Zelanti Dominion. Perhaps we could arrange a meeting to discuss mutual cooperation and understanding. Commander Vexthol stared at the screen for a long moment. In all his years serving the Dominion, no alien species had ever responded to his demands with such calm confidence. Most fell to their knees begging for mercy. Others tried to fight and died quickly, but these humans seemed to think they were equals having a normal conversation. You will come with us to Outpost Keth 9, the commander finally said. High Administrator, Zexvorth will decide your fate. We would be honored to meet with Administrator Zexvorth, Jake replied with a slight smile. Thank you for your hospitality. After the communication ended, Rick turned to his captain with worry in his eyes. Sir, I don't think they're planning to serve us dinner and discuss trade agreements. Probably not, Jake agreed. But they haven't blown us up either. That's a good start. Maya's voice came over the intercom from engineering. Captain, they're using some kind of tractor beam to pull us along. I could try to break free, but it might damage the engines further. Let them guide us, Jake decided. We're going to meet these Zelanti as representatives of Earth, not as prisoners. Everyone stay calm, be polite, and remember that how we handle this situation could determine the future relationship between humanity and an entire galactic empire. As the 3 alien ships escorted the horizon toward an unknown destination, Jake couldn't help but smile slightly. Humanity had just made first contact with aliens, and somehow he didn't think it was going to be the quiet diplomatic affair the politicians back on Earth had always imagined. The Zelanti outpost looked like a massive metal fortress floating in space. As the horizon was pulled into its docking bay, Jake Morrison and his crew got their first close look at the alien empire they had accidentally encountered. The docking bay was filled with ships from dozens of different species, but Jake noticed something troubling. The alien crews kept their heads down and moved quickly as if afraid to be noticed. Only the tall, blue-skinned Zelanti walked with confidence, while everyone else seemed to hurry out of their way. Captain, Dr. Lisa Barnes said quietly as they prepared to leave the ship. I'm reading at least 15 different alien species on this station, but the power structure seems very clear. The Zelanti are in charge of everyone else. Commander Rick Stone checked his sidearm one more time, though Jake had ordered everyone to keep weapons holstered unless absolutely necessary. This feels like a military occupation more than a peaceful empire. High Administrator Zexforth was waiting for them in the main docking bay, surrounded by 6 armed guards. The Zelanti Administrator was even taller than Commander Vexthol, with elaborate markings carved into his blue skin that seemed to indicate high rank. I am High Administrator Zexforth, the alien announced in a voice that expected immediate obedience. You will kneel before Dominion authority and accept judgment for your crimes against the Empire. Jake stepped forward with the same calm confidence he had shown earlier. Administrator Zexforth, I'm Captain Jake Morrison. It's a pleasure to meet you. We appreciate you taking the time to see us, and we're looking forward to learning more about your remarkable civilization. The Administrator's large black eyes blinked in confusion. Every alien species in the Dominion's long history had immediately fallen to their knees when commanded. These humans simply stood there smiling politely, as if they were guests at a dinner party. You will submit to processing immediately, Zexforth demanded. Your species will be catalogued and assigned appropriate work duties within the Dominion hierarchy. That's very generous, Jake replied, but I think there might be some misunderstanding. We're not here to join your empire. We're explorers from Earth who got lost and would like to return home. However, we'd be very interested in establishing trade and diplomatic relations between our peoples. Dr. Barnes stepped forward with her scientific scanner, completely ignoring the shocked stares of the Zelanti guards. Administrator, your technology is fascinating. These energy readings suggest power sources we've never encountered before. I'd love to exchange scientific information with your researchers. Engineer Maya Rodriguez was already examining the station's systems with professional interest. Your gravitational control is impressive, she told the nearest Zelanti technician. Though I notice you're having some issues with the secondary power grid. Mind if I take a look? Before anyone could stop her, Maya had opened an access panel and began rewiring the station's power distribution system. Within minutes, the lights grew brighter, and the humming of overworked machinery quieted to a smooth whisper. There, Maya said with satisfaction. That should fix your efficiency problems. Your engineers are skilled, but they were trying to force too much power through circuits that weren't designed for it. The Zelanti technicians stared in amazement. They had been struggling with those power fluctuations for months, and this human had fixed the problem in minutes using techniques they had never seen before. Tim Carter, meanwhile, had discovered something else interesting. While the Zelanti spoke only their own language to other species, many of the alien workers spoke different languages among themselves. Tim began moving through the crowd, greeting each species in their native tongue. "Hello, friend," he said, to a small, furry alien in what Jake recognized as a clicking, whistling language. "What is your world called?" The furry alien nearly dropped the heavy equipment he was carrying. No one had spoken to him in his own language since the Dominion had conquered his homeworld 20 years ago. Tears began to form in his large eyes. You know the old words," the alien whispered. "I'm learning," Tim replied gently. "Would you teach me more?" Word of the strange humans spread quickly through the station. Aliens who had been conquered and enslaved by the Dominion watched in amazement as these newcomers treated everyone with respect and kindness, regardless of species or rank. The situation came to a head when Commander Rick Stone encountered a group of Zelanti warriors in the station's recreation area. The warriors were practicing combat techniques, and their leader, a massive Zelanti named Kexvorth, noticed Rick watching with professional interest. "You study our fighting methods, weak creature," Kexvorth sneered. "Your soft species would not last 1 minute against Zelanti strength." Rick, thinking this was just the kind of friendly competition that soldiers often engaged in, smiled and replied, "I'd be happy to spar with you. We could learn from each other's techniques." Every alien in the recreation area went completely silent. In Zelanti culture, challenging a warrior to combat was a formal duel that could only be issued by an equal or superior. No conquered species had ever dared make such a challenge. Kexforth's eyes widened in shock, then narrowed in fury. "You dare challenge me, slave? Very well. When I defeat you, your death will serve as an example to all who would question Dominion power." Rick realized too late that he had misunderstood the situation, but it was too late to back down. The other humans gathered around as the two warriors faced each other in the center of the recreation area. Dozens of aliens from various species watched from a safe distance, hardly believing what they were seeing. The Zelanti warrior was larger and stronger than Rick, but Rick had trained in multiple combat styles throughout his military career. When Kexvorth charged forward with a traditional Zelanti attack pattern, Rick sidestepped smoothly and used the alien's own momentum to throw him to the ground. The fight lasted only 3 minutes. Rick's training in adaptive combat techniques allowed him to counter every move the Zelanti warrior made. When it was over, Kexvorth lay unconscious on the floor, and Rick was helping him to his feet with genuine concern. "Good fight," Rick said, offering his hand to help the defeated warrior. "Stand. You're very strong. I'd like to learn more about your fighting style sometime." The aliens watching could hardly believe what they had seen. Not only had a member of a conquered species defeated a Zelanti warrior, but he had shown mercy and respect to his defeated opponent. In the Dominion, the strong crush the weak without mercy. These humans seemed to follow completely different rules. High Administrator Kexvorth arrived to find his station in chaos. The human engineer had improved systems that the Dominion's best technicians couldn't fix. The human scientist was discussing advanced physics with researchers who had never heard such theories before. The human linguist was speaking to conquered aliens in their native languages, bringing hope to beings who had forgotten their own cultures. And now a human warrior had defeated one of the Dominion's finest fighters in single combat. "This is impossible," Zexvorth muttered to himself. "No conquered species behaves this way. They cannot be this confident unless—" The administrator's blood ran cold as a terrible thought occurred to him. What if these humans weren't just another weak species to be conquered? What if they represented something the Dominion had never encountered before? A civilization that considered itself equal to the great Zelanti Empire? Within hours, a priority message was racing through subspace toward the Dominion capital on Zelant Prime. The message was brief, but alarming. Unknown species designated humans have entered Dominion space. They show no fear or respect for Imperial authority. Request immediate instructions from High Command. As the human crew settled in for what they hoped would be peaceful negotiations, they had no idea that their simple refusal to be intimidated had just sent shockwaves through an empire that controlled hundreds of worlds across the galaxy. The capital world of Zelant Prime was a sight that took the breath away from every human aboard the horizon. The planet was covered in massive crystal towers that reached toward the stars, connected by bridges of pure energy that sparkled like diamonds in the light of three suns. It was beautiful, ancient, and absolutely terrifying in its display of power. "Captain," Dr. Lisa Barnes whispered as their ship was escorted toward the largest tower, "the energy readings from this planet are incredible. They're using the entire world as a single massive machine. I've never seen anything like it." Jake Morrison nodded grimly. The message from High Administrator Zexvorth had been clear. The Emperor himself wanted to see these humans who dared to treat the Dominion as equals. In 10,000 years of galactic conquest, no species had ever been brought directly before Emperor Thax Kelvon without first being completely broken and enslaved. "Remember, everyone," Jake told his crew as they prepared to meet the ruler of 300 billion beings. "We're representatives of Earth and the entire human race. Whatever happens here will determine how the galaxy sees humanity for generations to come." Commander Rick Stone adjusted his dress uniform one last time. "Any ideas what we're walking into, sir?" "A throne room full of beings who expect us to grovel at their feet," Jake replied. "We're going to politely disappoint them." Engineer Maya Rodriguez had spent the journey to Zelant Prime studying the technical specifications of their escort ships. "Captain, their technology is impressive, but it's not magic. Everything they've built follows the same physical laws we know. They're just very good at engineering on a massive scale." Tim Carter had been listening to Dominion communications during the entire trip. "Sir, I've been monitoring their transmissions. The language patterns suggest this emperor isn't just a political leader. In their culture, he's considered almost a living god. Everyone in the empire is supposed to worship him." "Well," Jake said with a slight smile, "I hope he doesn't expect us to convert to his religion." The Imperial Palace was even more magnificent than the planet's towers. The walls were made from some kind of living crystal that shifted colors with the Emperor's moods. The ceiling showed a real-time view of the entire galaxy, with Dominion worlds marked in blue and unconquered systems in red. There was a lot more red than Jake had expected. Hundreds of aliens from dozens of species lined the walls of the throne room, all kneeling with their faces pressed to the floor. Guards from the Emperor's personal army stood at attention, their weapons humming with deadly energy. At the far end of the room, on a throne carved from a single massive diamond, sat Emperor Thax Kelvon. The Emperor was the largest Zelanti any of the humans had seen, nearly 8 feet tall with skin so pale it was almost white. Ancient scars covered his arms and face, marks of the countless battles he had fought to build his empire. His eyes were not just black, but seemed to absorb light itself, like looking into the void between stars. "Behold," announced the Imperial herald in a voice that echoed through the vast chamber, "the presence of His Supreme Magnificence, Emperor Thax Kelvon, Master of the Galaxy, Conqueror of 1,000 worlds, Lord of all living things." Every alien in the room pressed their faces even harder to the floor. The herald looked expectantly at the humans, clearly waiting for them to do the same. Instead, Jake Morrison stepped forward and gave a respectful bow, the kind diplomats might exchange between equal nations. Your Imperial Majesty, I'm Captain Jake Morrison, representing the people of Earth. We're honored by your invitation to visit your magnificent capital. The silence in the throne room was so complete that Jake could hear his own heartbeat. Emperor. Thax Kelvin leaned forward on his crystal throne, his void black eyes studying these strange creatures who dared to stand upright in his presence. In 10,000 years, the Emperor said slowly, his voice like thunder rolling across mountains, no being has stood before this throne without kneeling. You will submit immediately or be destroyed. I understand your surprise, Your Majesty, Jake replied calmly. Humans kneel for prayer, for proposals of marriage, and to help children tie their shoes. We don't kneel to show submission, because we don't submit to anyone. However, we deeply respect your position and would be honored to discuss a partnership between our peoples. Dr. Barnes stepped forward with a small device in her hand. Your Majesty, as a gesture of friendship from Earth, I'd like to present you with some examples of human art and science. Before the guards could stop her, she activated the device. The air above it shimmered, and suddenly the throne room was filled with the sound of human music. A full orchestra played Beethoven's Ninth Symphony, while holographic images showed Earth's greatest paintings, sculptures, and architectural wonders. The Emperor and his court watched in stunned silence as the presentation continued. Dr. Barnes explained human discoveries in physics, medicine, and engineering. She showed them images of humans working together to build cities, explore space, and care for their sick and elderly. This is impossible, whispered one of the Emperor's advisors. No conquered species has ever demonstrated such advanced culture. Maya. Rodriguez had noticed something during the presentation. Your Majesty, if I may, she said respectfully, your empire's technology is magnificent, but I've observed some inefficiencies that human engineering might help improve. Our species has become very good at solving complex problems through cooperation and innovation. Tim Carter added, we've also learned that diversity makes us stronger. Each species we've encountered here has unique knowledge and perspectives. Earth would be honored to learn from all of them while sharing what we know in return. Emperor Thax Kelvin stood slowly from his throne. At his full height, he towered over the humans, and the crystal walls pulsed with angry red light that reflected his mood. You speak as if you are our equals, you are nothing. A primitive species from an unknown world who stumbled into our space by accident. We are an unknown species, Jake agreed. But we're not primitive, and we're certainly not nothing. We're explorers, scientists, artists, and dreamers who have traveled across the galaxy to meet you. We see the incredible things your people have accomplished, and we respect your strength. All we ask is that you respect ours in return. Respect? The Emperor's voice shook with rage. I am the master of 300 billion subjects across 10,000 worlds. I have conquered species with technology beyond your imagination. I have crushed civilizations that existed before your planet was even formed. You will kneel, or you will die. Jake looked up at the towering Emperor and spoke with quiet dignity. Your Majesty, humans choose to kneel or choose to stand. We're not capable of being forced to do either. If you want to kill us for that, then I suppose that's your choice to make. But you should know that if you do, you'll be starting a war with people who have never learned how to surrender. The Emperor stared down at this small human who refused to show fear even while facing death. In his long reign, Thax Kelvin had seen courage and defiance before, but it had always been desperate bravery in the face of hopeless odds. These humans seemed genuinely puzzled by his anger, as if they couldn't understand why anyone would expect them to submit to authority they didn't recognize. War? The Emperor said softly. You speak of war? Your single ship against my infinite fleet? Not just our ship, Jake replied. All of humanity. And from what I've seen here today, we might not be alone. It looks like there are a lot of people in your empire who might prefer cooperation to conquest. The Emperor's eyes swept across his throne room, noting for the first time how many of his subjects were watching the humans with expressions of hope rather than fear. The seeds of rebellion had been planted by these strange creatures who treated everyone as equals. Guards, Emperor, Thax Kelvon commanded, his voice echoing through the crystal chamber. Arrest these humans. Prepare the war fleet. If they want to test their strength against the Dominion, then we will show them the price of defiance. As the humans were led away under heavy guard, Jake caught the eye of a small, furry alien who had been watching from the crowd. The alien gave him the tiniest nod of respect and hope. Whatever happened next, Jake realized the Zelanti Empire would never be quite the same again. Admiral Kate Sullivan had been having a perfectly normal morning when the emergency alert came through. She was reviewing routine patrol reports in her office at Luna Command when every communication device in Earth's defense network began screaming at once. "Admiral!" Her aide, Lieutenant Ben Price, burst through the door without knocking. "We're receiving a priority transmission from the horizon. They're coming home, but they're not alone." Kate was already moving toward the command center before Ben finished speaking. The horizon had been missing for 3 months after disappearing near Jupiter. The search and rescue missions had found nothing but empty space and a lot of worried families. In the command center, she found organized chaos. Every screen showed different views of the same impossible sight. A massive alien fleet emerging from a wormhole just beyond Pluto's orbit. The ships were beautiful and terrifying, like someone had carved predators from black crystal and set them loose among the stars. "Captain Morrison is on the line, Admiral," reported Communications Officer Sarah Kim. "He says he has some bad news and some worse news." Kate took the communication headset and activated the secure channel. "Jake, please tell me you haven't started an interstellar war." "I'm afraid that's the worst news, Kate," came Jake's familiar voice from the lead alien ship. "The good news is that Earth is about to become the center of the galaxy's largest rebellion against a 10,000-year-old empire." "Wonderful," Kate muttered. "Give me the quick version." "We accidentally discovered a galactic empire called the Zelanti Dominion. They expected us to kneel and become slaves. We politely declined. Their Emperor took it personally and declared war on all humanity. The war fleet behind us has about 200 ships and enough firepower to crack planets." Kate looked at the tactical display showing Earth's defense fleet of 37 ships and felt her stomach drop. "And the good news you mentioned?" "Half. The Empire's subjects are already in rebellion. Turns out that when you treat people with dignity and respect, they remember what freedom feels like. We've got allies across the galaxy and more joining us every day." Before Kate could respond, her tactical officer called out from across the command center. "Admiral, the alien fleet is taking attack formation. We're being hailed on all frequencies." New voice filled the command center, cold, arrogant, and absolutely certain of its own superiority. "I am Fleet Commander Zax Theron of the Zelanti Dominion. Surrender immediately and submit to Imperial judgment or watch your pathetic world burn." Kate had been defending Earth for 20 years. She had faced pirates, terrorists, and natural disasters that threatened her home world. But she had never faced a genocidal alien empire with technology centuries beyond anything humans had developed. She keyed the response channel anyway. "This is Admiral Kate Sullivan of the Earth Defense Force. You are in violation of Earth's territorial space. Withdraw immediately or face the consequences." There was a pause, then harsh alien laughter echoed through the command center. "Your entire species will make amusing slaves. We will begin with the destruction of your orbital installations." "All ships," Kate broadcast on the fleet frequency. "This is Admiral Sullivan. Battle stations. Today we find out what humans are really made of. The first battle was a disaster. The Zelanti ships were faster, better armed, and protected by energy shields that Earth's weapons couldn't penetrate. Within the first hour, Kate had lost 8 ships and most of her orbital defense platforms. But something strange happened as the battle continued. The rigid Zelanti attack formations began to falter as human ships refused to follow predictable patterns. Where the aliens expected retreat, humans attacked. Where they expected surrender, humans adapted and improvised. Commander Tony Martinez, leading the defense of Luna Base, reported the first breakthrough. "Admiral, we can't punch through their shields, but Maya Rodriguez sent us some technical specifications from their captured ship. If we overload our engines and ram them at exactly the right angle, we can cause cascade failures in their power systems." "That's a suicide run, Tony," Kate replied. "Not if we eject at the last second and let the ship's computer finish the job," Tony said with grim humor. "Besides, it beats letting them blow us up from a distance." The tide of battle began to turn as human creativity met Zelanti technology. Earth ships started working in small groups using tactics the Empire had never seen before. They hid in asteroid fields, used gravity wells to slingshot around planets, and turned civilian cargo haulers into improvised weapons platforms. Most importantly, they began receiving help from an unexpected source. Across the galaxy, the species, conquered by the Dominion, were rising in rebellion. On 17 different worlds, alien freedom fighters were sabotaging Zelanti installations and broadcasting messages of hope to their fellow slaves. Dr. Alan Price, Earth's leading expert in alien technology, had been working around the clock to understand captured Dominion equipment. "Admiral, I'm starting to see patterns in their technology. It's incredibly advanced, but it's also incredibly rigid. They build everything the same way, fight the same battles the same way, even think the same way. They've conquered the galaxy by being predictable and overwhelming, not by being flexible." "And humans are nothing if not flexible," Kate replied. "What can we do with that information?" "We can be unpredictable. Every time they think they have us figured out, we change the rules, and we can teach our new alien allies to do the same thing." The real turning point came during the Battle of Titan. Commander Rick Stone, who had been released during a prisoner exchange, led a desperate defense of Earth's outer colonies using a combination of guerrilla warfare and psychological tactics that left the Zelanti completely confused. "They're not fighting like any species we've ever conquered," reported Fleet Commander Zax Theron to the Emperor. "They adapt to every strategy we use. When we destroy their ships, they turn the wreckage into weapons. When we corner their fleets, they scatter and attack from new directions. And somehow they're coordinating with rebel forces across the Empire." Emperor Thax Kelvon's response was predictable. "Send more ships. Crush them completely." But sending more ships only made the problem worse. Each new battle gave humanity's growing alliance more captured technology to study and more opportunities to recruit new allies from among the Empire's unwilling subjects. Tim Carter had become the voice of the rebellion, broadcasting messages in dozens of alien languages across the galaxy. His words were simple but revolutionary. "You don't have to kneel. You can choose to stand. You can choose to be free." On Keth 9, the alien workers who had met the original human crew began sabotaging Dominion equipment. On Veltar Prime, an entire alien species declared independence and began building their own defense fleet. On the industrial world of Nexus 7, slave workers took over the factories and started producing weapons for the rebellion instead of the Empire. Maya Rodriguez had become something of a legend among alien engineers across the galaxy. Her technical innovations were being copied and improved by brilliant minds from dozens of species, creating new technologies that combined the best ideas from across the galaxy. "The Emperor's biggest mistake," she explained to Admiral Sullivan, during a brief break between battles, was assuming that conquest meant the same thing as cooperation. He forced everyone to work for him, but he never let them work together. Now that they're sharing knowledge freely, they're advancing faster than the Dominion ever did. 6 months after the first battle at Earth, the situation had completely reversed. The Zelanti Empire, which had ruled the galaxy for 10,000 years, was collapsing as world after world declared independence and joined the human-led alliance. Emperor Thax Kelvon faced a choice he had never imagined possible. He could fight a war against half the galaxy, or he could try something no Zelanti emperor had ever done before: negotiate with beings he considered inferior. "Prepare my personal flagship," he commanded his remaining loyal forces. "If these humans want war, then I will face their champions myself. Let us end this the traditional way." As news of the Emperor's challenge spread across the galaxy, billions of beings watched their communication screens and waited to see what would happen. When an ancient empire's ultimate weapon, absolute power, faced humanity's greatest strength, the absolute refusal to accept that power. The Emperor's personal flagship was a thing of dark beauty, carved from a single massive crystal that had taken 1,000 years to grow. The Imperial Sovereign was larger than most space stations, powered by the hearts of dead stars, and armed with weapons that could shatter moons. It was the ultimate symbol of Zelanti power, and it was heading straight for Earth. Admiral Kate Sullivan watched the massive ship approach through the combined fleet of human and alien vessels that had gathered. Near Earth's moon, ships from 37 different species floated together in space, former slaves and conquerors now united against tyranny. "It's beautiful," whispered Dr. Lisa Barnes from the bridge of the horizon, which had been repaired and upgraded with technology from across the galaxy. "And absolutely terrifying." Captain Jake Morrison, now serving as the Alliance's diplomatic coordinator, opened a channel to the Emperor's ship. "Your Imperial Majesty, this is Captain Morrison. We're prepared to accept your surrender and discuss terms for a peaceful transition to galactic democracy." The reply came immediately, filled with ancient fury. "You dare mock the master of the galaxy? I challenge your champions to single combat. If you win, the Dominion will consider your terms. If I win, your rebellion ends and every world burns." Jake looked around at his crew and the representatives from dozens of alien species who had gathered to witness this moment. "Your Majesty, we accept your challenge, but we choose our own champion according to our own traditions." "Send your greatest warrior," the Emperor demanded. "I will face them with blade and honor." "We're not sending a warrior," Jake replied. "We're sending someone who represents what this rebellion is really about." Dr. Lisa Barnes stepped forward, and the assembled alien representatives nodded in agreement. She was not the strongest or the fastest, but she embodied everything the Alliance stood for: curiosity, compassion, and the belief that knowledge shared freely was more powerful than force applied brutally. "I volunteer," Lisa said simply. "Not to fight, but to talk. If Emperor Thax Kelvon wants to know why his empire is falling apart, I can explain it to him." The Emperor's laughter echoed across the communication channels. "A female? A scientist? You send me a weak creature to discuss philosophy while empires burn?" "I send you a human being," Jake replied. "Someone who will treat you with the same dignity and respect we've shown every person we've met, regardless of their species or their past." The meeting took place in the neutral space between the two fleets, aboard a small diplomatic vessel that had been hastily constructed using technology from a dozen different worlds. The Emperor arrived wearing ancient battle armor that had been worn by his ancestors during the conquest of 100 worlds. Dr. Barnes arrived wearing her standard research uniform and carrying only a small computer tablet. Emperor Thax Kelvon towered over the human scientist, his void black eyes studying her with the same intensity he had once used to plan the destruction of entire civilizations. "You are the champion of this pathetic rebellion? You who could not survive 1 minute against a Zelanti child in combat?" "You're right," Lisa replied calmly. "I probably couldn't win a physical fight against anyone in your empire. But I don't. Think that's what this is really about, is it? Explain yourself," the Emperor commanded. Lisa activated her tablet, and holographic displays filled the small chamber. "Your Majesty, may I show you what we've learned about your empire over the past few months?" The first display showed a map of the galaxy with Dominion territory marked in blue. 10,000 years ago, your people began conquering other worlds. At first, you were probably just defending yourselves or looking for resources, but something changed along the way. The map shifted, showing the Empire's expansion over the millennia. You stopped conquering worlds and started conquering people. You didn't just want their planets or their resources. You wanted their minds, their spirits, their sense of self-worth. You wanted them to believe they were inferior to you. They are inferior, the Emperor stated flatly. The strong rule the weak. It is the natural order. But that's not actually what happened, is it? Lisa continued. Look at this data. New displays showed production statistics, technological advancement, and scientific discoveries across the empire. For the first few thousand years after conquest, every world your empire absorbed became less productive, less innovative, less creative. You didn't make them stronger by ruling them. You made them weaker. The emperor's scarred face showed confusion. Impossible. The Dominion brought order to chaos. You brought fear to hope, Lisa replied gently. When people are afraid, they don't take risks. They don't innovate. They don't share ideas freely because they're worried about being punished for thinking differently. You created an empire of people who were so scared of making mistakes that they stopped trying to improve anything. She activated another display showing recent data from rebel worlds. But look what happened when we arrived. We didn't conquer anyone. We didn't demand submission. We just treated everyone we met like intelligent beings who had something valuable to contribute. And suddenly all these inferior species started accomplishing things your empire hadn't seen in centuries. Maya Rodriguez worked with your engineers and improved systems that hadn't been upgraded in decades. Tim Carter spoke to people in their own languages and reminded them of cultures they thought were lost forever. Even Commander Stone's combat, victory wasn't about showing superiority. It was about showing respect for an opponent's strength. The Emperor was silent for a long moment, studying the data that showed his empire's decline and the rebellion's rapid technological advancement. You claim that treating slaves as equals makes them stronger? I claim that they were never slaves to begin with, Lisa said firmly. They were people who were forced to act like slaves. There's a difference. A slave is property that does what it's told. A person is a thinking, feeling being with ideas and dreams and potential. You've been ruling over billions of people and treating them like property. That's why your empire is falling apart. And what would you have me do? The Emperor asked, his voice strangely quiet. Release control of 10,000 worlds? Allow chaos to consume the galaxy? I would have you ask them what they want, Lisa replied. Some worlds might choose to remain part of a reformed Zelanti government. Others might want complete independence. Still others might want to join our new alliance, but the choice should be theirs to make, not yours to impose. That is not how empires work. Then maybe it's time to try something other than an empire. Lisa stood and walked to the chamber's window, looking out at the mixed fleet of human and alien vessels. Your Majesty, look at those ships. 6 months ago, most of those species had never even met each other. They were all isolated on their own. Worlds working for your empire but never allowed to work together. Now they're sharing technology, learning from each other and accomplishing things none of them could have done alone. She turned back to face the Emperor. You built an empire by convincing everyone that you were stronger than them. But we built an alliance by showing everyone that we're all stronger together. Which approach do you think will last longer? Emperor Thax Kelvon stared at the display showing technological innovations that had emerged from the alliance in just 6 months. Faster engines, better weapons, more efficient life support systems, new medical treatments. Advances that represented more progress than the Dominion had made in the last 1,000 years. You are saying that I was wrong, he said slowly. That 10,000 years of Zelanti rule was a mistake? I'm saying that 10,000 years of Zelanti rule was one approach, Lisa corrected. It worked for a while, but it stopped working because it was based on fear instead of cooperation. You don't have to keep making the same mistake just because you've been making it for a long time. The Emperor looked out at the fleet of former enemies now working together, then back at the small human scientist who had just challenged everything he believed about power, leadership, and the natural order of the galaxy. If I agree to these changes, he said carefully, what becomes of the Zelanti people? Do we become slaves in turn? You become equals, Lisa replied. Some Zelanti worlds might choose to maintain their traditional government. Others might experiment with new forms of democracy or cooperation. The Zelanti people have accomplished incredible things. Your technology, your art, your architectural achievements are amazing. Imagine what you could accomplish if you were working with other species instead of ruling over them. The Emperor was quiet for nearly an hour, studying the data and considering possibilities he had never imagined before. Finally, he spoke. "I will not surrender to your alliance," he announced, "but I will negotiate. Send representatives from all species to Zelant Prime. We will discuss the formation of a new galactic government based on cooperation rather than conquest." 3 years later, Dr. Lisa Barnes stood in the same throne room where she had first met Emperor Thax Kelvon. But the room had changed. The crystal walls now showed not a map of conquered territories, but a communication network connecting thousands of worlds in voluntary cooperation. Representatives from hundreds of species worked together in chambers that had once held only Zelanti nobles.